Can you believe it? Just a few blocks from the skyscrapers and dazzling lights of Hollywood, there exists a parallel world where dreams and hopes fade, laws lose their weight, and fear becomes the common language. That's Skid Row, a wound that's difficult to heal right in the heart of California. It's hard to believe that an area less than 4 square miles can hold over 3,800 homeless people crammed into makeshift tents amidst the shouts of fights, the stench of garbage, and the darkness of despair. The concept of safety here is just a luxurious illusion. Even the police force, accustomed to facing danger, admits that Skid Row is one of the places they least want to set foot in. In today's video, we won't just step into Skid Row through images, but also learn about the hardships of the unfortunate people here in a more intimate way. By shining a light on these vulnerable individuals, I hope to inspire change and bring hope to those who need it most. Amidst the blazing sunshine and the skyscrapers reflecting the glamour of Los Angeles, there lies a place that local residents often avoid mentioning: Skid Row. Today, it appears as a long scar in the middle of the city, but few remember that there was a time when it wasn't the hell in paradise. It is now. In the early 1900s, Skid Row was known as a haven for temporary workers, those left over from the Civil War, immigrant laborers, or calloused hands just leaving the railroad yards in search of odd jobs. The neighborhood at that time had flop houses, cheap lodging houses paid for by the night, a few simple bars, and a church with warm, lamplit relief. It wasn't wealthy, but it was enough for those who were far from home to find a place to stay overnight and a hot meal. Then the turning point arrived. As industries left downtown Los Angeles, jobs disappeared. Those who cannot afford to rent elsewhere are forced to stay. At the same time, other cities began implementing a dumping policy, sending homeless people and mental patients to Skid Row to take advantage of the social services available there. The pressure mounted as the Los Angeles government implemented a containment policy, confining all relief services, shelters, and soup kitchens within the Skid Row area, hoping to keep the crisis within one zone. The initial intention was to manage things better, but the result was that Skid Row became the epicenter of the problem, where all walks of life were crammed together, and tents, disease, and the dark corners of society became the default image of the place. Stepping into Skid Row in 2025, every meter of road is a slice of poverty and despair. Within a mere 4 square miles, over 3,800 homeless individuals are trying to survive without a place to call home. You can see them anywhere: on the sidewalks, in abandoned elevators, even in locked public restrooms. Amidst one of America's wealthiest cities, that image felt like a betrayal of the trust of anyone who had known a Los Angeles full of opportunity, faith, and order. Although Los Angeles has concentrated all the city's dark corners into one area, its impact is still gradually spreading beyond neighborhood boundaries. Tourism and the economy are being eroded by negative images. The healthcare system, police, and public services are under immense pressure. If a street corner that was once just a temporary stopover can become the epicenter of a crisis, what does that say about the future of other cities in America? Don't take your eyes off the video, because right after this, we'll take you deep inside Skid Row, where every day feels like the post-war era, and hear the government's response to what's happening. Are you ready yet? Let's get started right now. If you mention slums, perhaps the image of dilapidated houses with patchy walls and leaky roofs comes to mind. But Skid Row is more than that, because here, for many, even a dilapidated roof is a luxury beyond reach. According to the latest statistics from 2025, approximately 70% of the homeless residents in Skid Row have no shelter at all, meaning they live directly on the streets rather than in shelters or temporary housing. They built tents from torn tarpaulins, rotten pieces of wood, or anything they could scavenge from the dump. Some people even call their huts wife, a bitter self-mockery of the only thing that is always by their side. The Skid Row area spans approximately 50 blocks and has the highest concentration of homeless people in Los Angeles County. Public sanitation systems in here are almost non-existent. There are only about 9 toilets serving over 2,000 people at any given time. And most of them have no soap, no toilet paper, not even basic amenities. A woman recounted that she was horrified when she opened the door of a public restroom and saw a homeless person lying motionless inside. That sight was truly terrifying. I haven't been able to close my eyes since then. Looking at the way he's lying there, I'd guess he's been there at least 5 or 6 days. The people living in Skid Row have been forced to forego their most basic needs in order to survive at a bare minimum. They live amidst garbage, discarded medical supplies, and even human waste. Those conditions make outbreaks of diseases like hepatitis A, hepatitis C, and HIV familiar. No longer considered a sudden disaster, it has become a part of daily life. But the most concerning thing about Skid Row isn't just the trash, waste, or makeshift tents. Behind the dust and grime of the streets lies a crisis within a crisis. Mental health is cracking day by day. Approximately 25% of the homeless population in Los Angeles suffers from mental illness, and over 50% are struggling with overwhelming negative issues. With the difficulties inherent in using harmful substances, the question of which came first, the chicken or the egg, seems to have no answer. Is it the difficulties that push people into the vortex? Or is it the vortex itself that makes them lose everything? It's really hard to answer. But one thing is undeniable. When these two factors intertwine tightly, they transform into a ruthless vortex, pulling people down to the depths. And the longer one stays in Skid Row, the door to escape becomes almost completely closed. City authorities have repeatedly tried to turn things around with sweeps, street cleaning campaigns, tent removals, and the collection of belongings to reclaim public space, maintain hygiene, and reduce crime. However, most efforts are like an endless game of cat and mouse. The homeless simply move to another neighborhood and return a few days later. One police officer admitted, "We come here every day, clean up, weekly, but it's like a game of whack-a-mole. After just one day, everything was back to normal. If we don't address the root cause, this vicious cycle of despair will never end." No one is born to live outdoors, among garbage and waste. Whether you're sitting in a safe house in Los Angeles or thousands of miles away from Skid Row, you might think the stories here don't apply to you. But the truth is, these people are just like you and me. They're only one missed paycheck or one unexpected event away from homelessness. And if you think about it carefully, we're all just one paycheck away from that scene. If a vicious cycle can keep thousands of people trapped in despair on Skid Row, how many other communities across America are silently entering a similar orbit? And if an unexpected event can push anyone to the brink of homelessness, then what is the true line between safe and losing everything? When you step into Skid Row, you can see countless intertwined stories. Dense neighborhoods, people living in hardship, cleaning efforts, and then recurring. But if that superficial layer is brushed aside, one will see a less talked about truth than the housing crisis. Not only is it the direct cause of pushing thousands of people out onto the streets, but it is also the door that slams the hope of returning to a stable life. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Los Angeles has surpassed $2,400 per month, nearly double what it was a decade ago, according to 2024 figures. With the current minimum income, a person must work more than 100 hours per week to pay the rent separately. In a city known for its opportunity and dynamism, this turns settlement into an out-of-reach dream for the majority of unskilled workers. As a result, choices become harsh. Many people have to spend most of their income to pay rent, accept living crowded into degraded spaces, or leave their roofs. In Skid Row, it is not uncommon to see faces who have been delivery workers, plumbers, care workers, or production workers. They used to have a job, a support, but just one job loss, an unexpected medical expense, or an unannounced rent increase can all fall apart in just a few weeks. The supply of affordable housing is also constantly declining. Since the early 2000s, Los Angeles has lost over 15,000 low-rent apartments, most of which were demolished or converted into luxury units. Despite the city investing billions of USD in social housing projects, many constructions still face cost overruns, extended construction times, or are halted midway. That vortex not only affects those who directly lose their homes, but also puts pressure on the entire community. As more people are pushed onto the streets, public services must shoulder additional responsibilities. Community support forces face more emergency situations, hospitals receive more cases related to outdoor living conditions, and businesses lose customers due to the unappealing surrounding environment. A police officer patrolling Skid Row once frankly said, "We can clean up a block today, but if they still have nowhere to stay tomorrow, they'll be back in the same spot." That saying clearly illustrates the reality. Cleaning is only a temporary solution, while the root lies in the fact that people have nowhere to return to. To untie this knot, more than short-term campaigns are needed. One approach is to renovate vacant buildings into affordable rental apartments, as some cities in Oregon and Colorado have done. Alongside this, financial assistance programs, such as temporary rental subsidies, can help many families maintain their housing during difficult times. But the most sustainable solution is still to combine housing with long-term support services, psychological counseling, vocational training, job connections, so that those who have lost their homes not only have a roof over their heads, but also a real opportunity to start over. Some big brands have started to join hands. Home Depot partners with non-profits to renovate temporary veteran accommodations. IKEA provides reasonably priced furniture for social housing projects, turning empty rooms into shelters. Walmart and Costco deploy periodic food packages at preferential prices for supportive households, reducing the burden of living costs. These efforts are not enough to solve the whole problem, but they send a clear message. When governments, businesses, and communities act together, there is hope. And the question is, if an abandoned building can be turned into a place that welcomes dozens of families, what if this approach is replicated across America? And if we all see the value of helping a person keep a roof, is it still necessary to see streets like Skid Row? In the middle of the tented streets of Skid Row, there are faces that make people one beat slower. Not because they are dangerous, but because their story evokes a torment that is difficult to name. They used to be part of the community. They used to have a home, a job, and a circle of relationships. But somehow, the flow of life swept them out of that trajectory and left them on the sidelines. Ms. L, 70 years old, used to work at a small garment factory in downtown Los Angeles. For more than 3 decades, her hands were associated with the sound of sewing machines, working while raising her 2 adults. But when the workshop closed because she lost her contract, she lost her job at the age of 62. The savings gradually dried up as living expenses increased, and one day she realized she couldn't pay the room rent. Now she lives in a tent made from a few tarps, just a few streets from where she used to work. Not far from where Ms. L is Mr. R, 64 years old, a former port worker. He used to be proud of his labor and ability to support his family. But after an injury left him unable to work hard, his income dropped sharply. Even though he tried to take odd jobs, he still didn't have enough to keep the rented room. The long days on the street made him age faster than his real age, but in his story, there is still a glimpse of faith that one day things will get better. People like Ms. L and Mr. R do not fall into this situation because of lack of effort. They have worked hard all their lives, but when the incident happened, A surgery, a contract was cut, an unexpected expense, had no safety net strong enough to keep them. And once you get out on the road, the way back is almost non-existent. This reflects a broader reality. In a fast-changing society and escalating costs of living, many older people are easily left behind. Not only did they lose their home, but they also lost their sense of belonging to the once close-knit community. Each story is a reminder that the homeless crisis is not just the numbers on the report, but real lives with their own memories, pride, and pain. When looking at them, it is difficult to avoid the question: if a city as rich as Los Angeles still leaves the people who contributed to its construction to live on the sidelines, what does that say about how we care for the generation that has gone before? And, in the current spiral of upheaval, how many of us are also quietly moving closer to that boundary without even realizing it? On Skid Row, tents are not only a symbol of poverty, but also a mirror of gaps in the social support system. For many years, Los Angeles has spent billions of dollars to solve the homeless problem, but the results have made many people wonder. LASA figures show that in 2023 alone, the budget for programs to support homeless people exceeded $1.3 billion US, but the number of people living on the streets still increased by nearly 9% compared to the previous year. Part of the reason comes from the break between the links. Policy Housing First prioritizes providing accommodation before addressing other issues, is expected to create a solid foundation. But in practice, it lacks a combination with adjunctive services such as psychological counseling, vocational training, or medical assistance. Many people receive temporary accommodation, but are not equipped with the skills or resources to maintain their new lives, leading to a return to the streets after just a few months. However, there are still glimmers of light. Some cities in the US have begun testing models that combine accommodation, health services, and job opportunities within the same system to prevent people from returning to homelessness. Los Angeles is also working on new approaches, including partnering with the private sector to leverage resources and management experience. Many big brands have proactively participated. Home Depot partners with non-profit organizations to repair and equip temporary apartments, especially for veterans. IKEA provides reasonably priced furniture packages, helping social houses become cozier and more comfortable. CVS Health launches mobile healthcare programs in areas with large homeless populations, reducing hospital load and bringing health services closer to those most in need. Walmart and Costco continue to offer periodic food packages at preferential prices, ensuring uninterrupted necessities. If these resources and intelligence were brought together early on, would Skid Row still be the name associated with the image of despair it is today? And from another perspective, if we invest in prevention in the first place, how many people will never experience the feeling of losing the place they call home? When it comes to Skid Row, many people immediately think of an isolated neighborhood, as if every problem is zoned within a few blocks of downtown Los Angeles. But in reality, what happens here does not stand still within that boundary. Its consequences spread far and wide, affecting wealthy neighborhoods, bustling commercial centers, and even how people perceive the city itself. With the tourism industry, the image of Skid Row appearing in global media has eroded the appeal of Los Angeles. International tourists who once chose this city because of its blend of blue sea, cinematic culture, and shopping opportunities now have to face unavoidable scenes. Some travel agencies have adjusted their schedules, skipping routes near this area to avoid negative reactions from guests. The health system also carries additional burdens. As living conditions on Skid Row lead to a wide range of health problems, from infectious diseases to chronic problems, public hospitals and mobile clinics have to work at high capacity. Already limited resources are now even more fragmented, causing waiting times and care costs for the entire city to increase. However, there is still a chance to change this trajectory. Many major brands are playing an active role in these efforts. Target has tested a program to recruit people who have experienced homelessness, providing job training and stable job positions. CVS Health expands mobile healthcare, reaching high-need communities. Kroger and Costco launched a program to distribute fresh food at preferential prices, helping families have a stable source of nutrition. The solution cannot come from just one side. When governments, businesses, and communities work together, positive impacts can spread quickly, in the same way that negative impacts once spread out of Skid Row. If viral effects are inevitable, then why don't we proactively create a positive wave so that instead of spreading the image of despair, Los Angeles can send out stories to the world of revival. Perhaps never before has this question sounded so clearly as it does now, when images from Skid Row, Kensington, or Tenderloin have become a living warning to the rest of America. The garbage-filled streets, close-knit tents, and tired eyes of stray people are no longer individual images of a win area that is gradually creeping into the collective memory of the entire nation. Without change, the prospect of a Los Angeles, a San Francisco, or even a New York with Skid Row's appearance could become a reality in the next few decades. What concerns many is the speed with which the problem is spreading. It can take a city decades to build a strong economy and community, but it only takes a few years of job decline, escalating rents, and a lack of effective supportive policies, which have built up easily collapses. As a neighborhood loses its security and charisma, investment flows and residents with stable incomes begin to leave. This effect spreads, leaving gaps that small businesses cannot fill. In that picture, unskilled workers and low-income groups are often the ones most affected. They are forced to leave areas where has been rooted for generations, to find cities that are farther away, less expensive, but also less opportunistic. This creates a double migration spiral. Those who can afford to leave first, leaving behind a community that lacks social, economic balance, making unemployment and security problems even more serious. If this is the future, perhaps many American cities will face a decline in every sector. Tourism lost, restaurants and shops closed in droves, cultural events, sports were cut, and public budgets are no longer enough to maintain basic services. The promotional image of major brands such as Marriott, Hilton, or Starbucks will be affected when branches in unsafe areas cannot retain customers. Even retail corporations like Walmart or Costco, which are closely tied to the American working class, will have to consider shrinking their presence in high-risk areas. The future of American cities may still be a picture of light and dark, but what is certain is that every action, no matter how small, can contribute to changing the landscape. If Skid Row is a warning, then shaking hands with brands, communities, and governments is the answer. Because when a city retains a diverse pace of life, equitable access, and space for people to feel welcome, even the darkest corners can find light. Skid Row is more than just a landmark. It is a mirror of what a society can lose when the weakest pieces of the puzzle are left behind. Here, every street corner is an unfinished story. Every look is a silent plea for help. And what torments us the most is probably the feeling of everything is still going on, right when you are watching this video. When the camera lights go out, when stories no longer appear in newspaper headlines, Skid Row still exists, silently but persistently. Do we only pay attention to tragedies when they first break out, then gradually forget them when silence falls? If one day your city appears a new Skid Row, will you choose to stand outside and observe, or step in to change something even the smallest? Please share your story under comments, because sometimes an honest account can be the first step to awakening an entire community. And if you find this video worth getting to know, click like, subscribe, and share it with friends and family, so that the light of truth spreads further than the streets we just walked together. This video was made with the purpose of providing information and raising public awareness. Any images, figures, and citations collected from public sources, official reports, or actual records at the time of production. We do not attempt to defame any individual, organization, or agency, nor do we encourage viewers to arbitrarily visit areas at risk of insecurity. Some images and stories may be illustrative or omitted in detail to protect the character's identity. The figures presented are indicative and subject to change over time. Viewers should check official sources for the most up-to-date information. All comments and opinions shared in the video only reflect the producer's perspective at the time of recording and editing, and do not represent the views of any organization or agency.